Warning, the following episode contains graphic descriptions of mass casualties, severe injuries, and extreme trauma. Viewer discretion is advised.
I just remember me being on the floor because it knocked me back on the wall and I could feel my face was burning so much. I didn't know what was happening.
We lost everything. We lost our relatives. We lost our home. We lost our money. We lost our soul.
And I remember unlocking my phone and What's Up was on. And the second I clicked the film, I saw what I guess the whole world saw.
August 4th, 2020 was a day like any other in Lebanon's vibrant capital, Beirut. People went to work, hospitals cared for the sick, happy brides-to-be posed for photographs, until a disaster of unspeakable proportions was unleashed. One of history's largest non-nuclear explosions blasted through the city, leaving corpses, chaos, rubble, and lasting damage in its wake. What's left is 218 people confirmed dead, more than 7,000 wounded, and 300,000 rendered homeless. In the blink of an eye, half the city's medical facilities totaled.
I remember thinking, is this war? Was it an attack?
We grew up in Lebanon hearing explosions, and we knew this time that it was something of a whole other level.
It wasn't an act of war. It was an absolutely enormous explosion of highly volatile, flammable, dangerously stored ammonium nitrate fertilizer. Essentially, a warehouse-sized bomb detonated in a crowded city center. And it gets worse. Officials knew this was a possibility. They were warned, but for 6 years, they did nothing. And with every passing moment, the chance of catastrophe grew more likely. How did one woman save 3 premature babies in an astonishing act of compassion and survival? How did 6 grain silo workers avoid certain death despite their proximity to the blast? And why was a fire crew kept in the dark and sent on a virtual suicide mission to fight the blaze? To understand what it was like on the ground, I spoke with Roberto Helou, a Lebanese filmmaker, YouTuber, and activist who survived the explosion and became involved in the grassroots relief efforts that followed. In the days and months after the blast, Roberto documented both the devastation and the volunteers working tirelessly to help Beirut recover.
There's rumors that no, it's pure accident. It's just the political class of Lebanon that is to blame. The thing is, who ignited it?
These are the harrowing survival stories of the Beirut port explosion. Our scene is the Port of Beirut, one of the busiest in the Eastern Mediterranean, a stone's throw from the city's densely populated commercial and political districts. Amid the hustle and bustle, a fire breaks out in Warehouse 12. People start filming. The fire smolders. Fireworks stored inside the warehouse ignite. Ingredients like charcoal, starch, and sulfur release heat and gas. Nearby sit tires and jugs of acid.
We're so used to seeing bombs and wars and constant conflicts that it was very normal. We didn't do anything about it. We didn't think about running, about escaping.
Another thing people in Lebanon are used to is corruption. It's a problem in many ports, but in Lebanon, it's a problem everywhere. And as you'll see, this corruption has deadly consequences. Before we get into the rest of our story, let's take a quick break. Between filming and writing scripts, I'm basically always driving somewhere or standing in a grocery store line. Recently, I started using this free app called Upside, and it's genuinely changed how I fill up and shop. Here's how it works. You open the app, claim an offer, pay with your card like you normally would, and you get cash back. It's that simple. And it's actual cash back, not points sitting in some account I'll never use or a credit tied to one store. It transfers straight to my bank account. There are over 100,000 locations on Upside across the country, and once you start checking the app, you'll realize how often there's an offer nearby when you're grabbing gas, groceries, or dining out. And the cool part is, it stacks with whatever credit card or loyalty program you're already using. So you're earning cash back on top of your cash back. Upside has given back $1 billion to its users. To find out how much you could earn, scan the QR code to download the free Upside app and use promo code SURVIVE to get an extra 25 cents back for every gallon on your first tank of gas. That's an extra 25 cents back for every gallon on your first tank of gas using promo code SURVIVE. Now, back to the show. It takes about 14 minutes before someone calls the fire department. Platoon 5 is dispatched, a 10-member crew. Among them is 27-year-old paramedic Sahar Fares. Sahar was engaged to her proud fiancé, Gilbert Karan, an officer in the Lebanese security forces.
She was an angel on earth, even when she wore a uniform. But she had the courage of 100 men. She is afraid of nothing.
Sahar was supposed to have the day off, but decided to work so she could travel to see Gilbert the day after. En route to the scene, she got in touch.
Sahar sent a video message to say goodbye, and she was sitting on the center seat of the ambulance and waving.
Sahar, Gilbert, and the rest of Platoon 5 were all oblivious to the horror that was about to unfold. Nobody told them what was inside. A virtual fuse was burning rapidly towards its deadly payload. As they struggled to enter the warehouse, Sahar films the pungent-smelling smoke billowing from the facility. These would be the final moments of a tragedy set in motion some 7 years earlier. One that involves a failing cargo ship, a shady Russian businessman, and an African munitions factory. Here at How to Survive, our goal is to educate and shed light on undertold stories. If that's something you're interested in, please like this video, drop us a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. The 2,750 tons of deadly ammonium nitrate that devastated Beirut were never supposed to be there in the first place. It was destined for an explosives factory in Mozambique, carried there in a ship so rusted and with cargo hatches so damaged by heavy machinery that it failed a safety inspection. The MV Rosis was impounded. The man who owned it, Igor Grakushkin, declared bankruptcy. Instead of safely disposing of the cargo, it was dumped in Warehouse 12. To understand why this explosion was so massive, it was felt in Cyprus, almost 125 miles away, you have to understand the qualities of ammonium nitrate. It doesn't catch fire easily on its own, but it can make nearby materials burn more intensely. Remember those fireworks, tires, and acid jugs? Ammonium nitrate also absorbs moisture from the air, which makes it unstable. And when it's in an enclosed space, it can blow. Basically, a humid seaside warehouse is the worst possible location. And to give you a sense of its explosive power, about 2 tons of it destroyed the FBI building in Oklahoma City back in 1995. Nearly 3,000 tons were sitting in Beirut. None of this was a secret. Governments and customs officials warned that the chemicals could, quote, blow up all of Beirut. 6 separate letters were sent to judges asking for the material to be moved. All of them were ignored. 2 reports even made it to the desk of the Lebanese president. None of it would save the lives of Platoon 5 and hundreds of others. Gilbert calls Sahar one final time.
Sahar wasn't looking at me because she was watching the sky while holding her phone. And I asked her, "Is there something wrong?" And I shouted, "Sahar, answer me." I said, "If there's something wrong, run, run." I saw that she wasn't running fast and was shaking her head. She was scared. 5 or 6 seconds later, there was this explosion.
This is the first of 2 blasts, and it happens in the southern end of the warehouse, triggering the main charge. Then, more than 6 million pounds of ammonium nitrate goes off. A hellish orange-red cloud fills the sky. It's quickly replaced by a gray wave of destruction, annihilating everything in its path. Sahar and all the members of Platoon 5 are killed in an instant. The power of this blast is hard to fathom. It blows a crater in the ground more than 450 feet across, which rapidly floods with seawater. A supersonic shockwave shatters glass 6 miles away. 300,000 people are displaced.
To put things into perspective, I live 10 kilometers away from the blast site. So imagine how strong the blast was for glass to shatter 10 kilometers away.
I thought at that moment that it might be Israeli warplanes bombing us because it was too strong and too loud. I have never heard something as loud.
Bodies are shredded by flying metal, concrete, and debris that become deadly projectiles. Buildings crumble. People are tossed like rag dolls. Their ears rupture, lungs collapse.
The second blast just blew all the windows up. It was surreal. When you walked on the streets, there was no windows left, not one. It was just all shards and glass everywhere on the streets and inside houses.
Lives snuffed out. Hopes, dreams buried under rubble. A tragedy embodied by two brides, but only one would live to see her wedding day. It was Isra Sablani's wedding day, and in the quiet moments before the ceremony, she posed for photos in her gown. Smiling, radiant, happy, and completely unaware of what was about to happen. When the blast hit, Isra thought she would lose everything.
That moment, one thing I thought about, now I'm losing my life, I'm losing my husband, I'm gonna be buried under a building, now I'm gonna die.
Terrified, Isra, her husband, and the photographer fled, seeking safety in a nearby cafe. Thankfully, they all survived. Later, when Isra removed her wedding dress, tiny shards of glass fell to the floor. Sadly, Sahar was not so lucky. Desperate to pay tribute to the life she was about to start, instead of a funeral, her loved one staged a mournful wedding. And before the dust had even settled in the blast radius, the living were hit by waves of regret. But within all this sadness and destruction, there are stories of impossible survival. Ali Saib worked about 300 feet away from the blast's epicenter. He was in charge of safety at Pier 9. And between his office and the ammonium nitrate sat a massive complex of grain silos. Dozens of white cylinders nearly 170 feet tall. When the blast went off, he was hurled 90 feet through the air. He and 5 others survived. The grain silos blunted the force of the explosion. 8 other workers shared a much different fate, losing their lives buried beneath 30,000 tons of grain stored inside. Ali worked for weeks to find the bodies of his colleagues. And across the city, similar scenes were unfolding. But this explosion didn't discriminate between grain silo and hospital. So the very places survivors needed the most became fatally compromised. In a matter of minutes, the Beirut blast rendered half of the city's healthcare centers non-functional, including 3 major hospitals. Many doctors, nurses, and first responders were injured in the blast. As thousands of victims flooded the system, there weren't enough beds or rooms to tend to everyone.
Even in the civil war, it wasn't like this, 700 in 2 hours. The youngest one was here in this room. She was dying here. I knew that she was dying.
It was a healthcare system already buckling under the weight of the COVID-19 pandemic and a severe economic crisis. 10 containers of personal protective equipment were lost. Critical medical materials were in short supply. Vaccines and medications stored at the National Quarantine Warehouse took a major hit. And worst of all, hospitals were short on blood, which trauma victims desperately needed. This created a compounding crisis. Overwhelmed hospitals pushed victims into COVID wards. In the months that followed, virus cases spiked. Hospitals began turning people away.
Going to all these hospitals was a total butchery. You saw traces of blood everywhere. There was about 7,000 people that got seriously injured, like probably tens of thousands of others that had minor injuries.
I was sitting here with the babies. I did my rounds and the blast happened. Okay, everything fell down on the floor. The ceilings fell down on us. So I was knocked out for a few seconds. And then I woke up, just made sure I was okay. I could move my hands and legs. And then directly I thought of the babies.
And as doctors and nurses toiled under impossible conditions, a 26-year-old nurse found herself caring for 3 lives that could not have been in a more precarious situation. Moments after pediatric nurse Pamela Zaynoun regained composure, she leapt into action. She worked in the neonatal ward, and the blast had knocked out power to the incubators keeping premature babies alive.
They were present in this room and in the other room. They were 5 babies. I was able to grab 3 of them, and the nurses that were with me were able to grab 2 of them and give them to the residents because they were severely injured. And I was able to go down the stairs to get them to safety.
For nearly 90 minutes, she carried them through obliterated streets. Ears ringing, heart racing, the air filled with sirens and screams.
I went from this hospital to two other hospitals. I wasn't able to get admitted because these hospitals were also in ruins. So I had to walk around 5 kilometers to reach another hospital with the 3 babies.
Pamela saved their lives. And while wounds can heal, what about the damage that doesn't leave a scar? For thousands, the psychological, emotional, and family trauma was just beginning.
I saw my life turned upside down. I saw my world fading away, disappearing. My mother passed away. I lost my home.
Ariana Papazian was 15 when her mother was torn from her life. Killed in the immediate aftermath of the explosion, she found her lying on the family's living room floor. Ariana had to leave her mother behind to save her younger brother. At that moment, she had no time for grief. That would come later. Psychological aftershocks would continue to batter those lucky enough to survive. The rampant post-traumatic stress took many forms. Memories of the explosion would unlock deeper fears of what life was like during Lebanon's disastrous civil war that ended in 1990.
Most Lebanese people, we haven't had time to heal because problems have kept going.
Then, add anger toward the government that could have prevented the tragedy and left people to fend for themselves in the aftermath.
But just after the explosion, people just went on the street and started organizing themselves.
The government is not doing anything. The government is just worried how to cover its traces.
I still have this very fresh image in my mind of military guys from the Lebanese military kind of standing and just eating sandwiches and smoking when civilians were just cleaning the roads and doing the hard work.
Fresh from unearthing and reburying their dead, citizens had to form cleanup crews. They began the monumental task of restoring their homes, neighborhoods, and city. It didn't take long for this anger to become rage. Mass protests erupted. In a central square, protesters set up mock gallows, symbolically condemning the country's ruling class to death. A food crisis deepened. Those grain silos we talked about earlier were a strategic reserve. Hunger was spreading, and as millions of dollars of international aid arrived, governments redirected it away from the Lebanese government for fear of corruption.
In the next days after the aftermath, when we were on the streets helping, our nails kept turning black because of how polluted the air was. When you would blow your nose, it was all like black or brown.
By the 10th of August, there was one last institution to be toppled by the blast: the Lebanese government. The entire cabinet and its prime minister resigned.
We always speak with pride by how resilient we are, and I think resilience can also make us complacent and accepting things we should have never accepted from the get-go.
I want to come back to a theme we mentioned earlier: corruption. A disaster that killed hundreds, injured thousands, and caused billions of dollars of damage would be punished. Yet, according to Amnesty International, 5 years after the blast, that hadn't happened. No justice for victims like Sahar, or truth for family members like Gilbert or Ariana.
What's sad is that the government and the people that are supposed to be in charge, they're just turning a blind eye on the people.
The same people who caused the civil war are the same people who caused this explosion. They are still the same. It's the same bloody names.
The corruption is everywhere. So it's more like a conglomerate of mafias leading the country and governing the country, and even if you want to do change, you cannot.
Today, 6 years later, a prosecutor's review, formal indictment, and trial have yet to occur. Which is, of course, a bitter irony given that this was a preventable disaster, not a natural one Lebanon was powerless to avoid. It was born of greed, corruption, and ultimately a total disregard for the sanctity of human life. And it teaches us a harrowing lesson. When a state is allowed to operate with absolute impunity, it is the nurses, the silo workers, the children who pay the ultimate price. If you'd like to help the people of Lebanon in this ongoing crisis, please consider donating to the organizations we've listed in the description.
I think one way to support Lebanon and everything our country has been going through is by getting to know it more. I think awareness is the start of care. And care is what really changes the world and makes it a better place.
And if you found this episode compelling, check out our episode on the Fukushima disaster, where, like in Beirut, government corruption led to one of the worst man-made disasters in human history. We'll see you next time on another episode of How to Survive.